people. But what if I told you some of the characters you loved were the worst of all? Some do it for revenge, others just to win. These are secretly evil players ranked from bad to completely unforgivable. An honorable mention to start off is the Doctor, Byung-hee player 111. Most if not all of the other players didn't see him as any different from them, and Duk-soo only knew that he was told the games beforehand. Nobody knew about the organ harvesting scheme, and I doubt that any of them ever did, due to the frontman not disclosing this information in the scene before Marbles in episode 6. Now, the first person to come to most people's minds would be Oh Il-nam, the creator of Squid Game, and how nearly the entire community cried at his death in Marbles, Season 1, Episode 6, when we didn't know of this man's evil doings. He was arguably one of the series' most evil characters, if not the most evil, so it's not surprising he's here. For starters, he was a loan shark, becoming incredibly rich and incredibly bored, the only reasonable thing that happened to this man. As a solution to his boredom, he created the Squid Games, a series of 6 games across 6 days with a total cash prize of 45.6 billion won, around 25.1 million euros or $31.1 million. The only catch? Losing any of the 6 games results in elimination from the competition and death. He oversaw 32 Squid Games in his entire life, and he still found himself bored after those 32 years, as though nothing more could satisfy him, not even the gruesome deaths and participation of South Korea's poor. So he did one last thing, joined the 33rd Squid Games himself. Upon waking up in the bunk room, he is met by Song Gi-hun, that year's player 456, who he has a conversation with about their placement in the games. Obviously, Il-nam was the only person in the room who knew how and why they were there, but nobody knew this. He seemed to be the weakest link, a part of his bluff to appear as a good character, for example. Duk-soo and his gang would have never recruited a weaker person. However, people took a different view of him in Red Light, Green Light, as he was easily the most energetic player there, showing you how psychotic he is, thriving in a deadly environment, but nobody catches that at all, not even us as the viewer. Most people just thought that, well, he's a bit weird. Maybe dementia and his brain tumor have gotten to him, but no. This is another flash of the dark side of Oh Il-nam. The last thing that we see in Season 1 is in Episode 6, where he manipulates Gi-hun to the point of breaking down. Within the marbles game, Il-nam and Gi-hun play odds or evens, wagering a number of marbles each, and whoever guesses the parity of the sum beforehand wins all the marbles wagered. However, once Il-nam starts winning, he apparently has an episode of dementia, and Gi-hun takes the marbles even when losing, feeling guilty about manipulating and killing the old man who he had seen as a friend, his best friend, his ganbu, and after Il-nam reveals that he knew all along, he's at the point of a breakdown. But Il-nam lets Gi-hun progress as he drops out of the games, but without dying. The next person that many people will think of is Hwang In-ho, the frontman. He's the master manipulator out of everybody across both seasons, tricking many people to prevent plans and execute his own. The first obvious mention of this is in Season 1, Episode 8, when we found out who he actually is. Before we only knew of him as the frontman, now we know his name is Hwang In-ho, and that he has deceived his brother Junho. He never told him about his participation in the games or his disappearance for obvious reasons, but it's still an act of evil towards a character who had seen him as good. Additionally, he shoots him, but this is A, in a non-fatal area, potentially on purpose, and B, in retaliation to being shot by him. The main scenario fitting this video title for In-ho is the Young-il Act, spanning from the end of Season 2, Episode 3 to Season 2, Episode 7, when he joins the games as Player 001 and joins Gi-hun's group, just to betray them later. He appeals to Gi-hun, Jung-bae, and Dae-ho, just to turn on them in the rebellion and kill Jung-bae once returning to his role as the frontman. He acted friendly towards the main character group, but had evil intentions. Now, for the less obvious picks, starting with the other Hwang brother, Junho. Yes, he's your average cop, being friendly on the streets, but this changes upon him reaching the island. For starters, he strangles a circle guard to have a disguise on the island before throwing their body overboard, his first of a few murders. After this, his next murder is while he watches the organ harvesting scheme, kills the circle guard once they have told him about the zombie, as he had thought that it was his brother at the mention of its lack of a second kidney. His final murder that we know of is of the VIP's waiter to take their mask and make his way into the glass bridge viewing room. He is then led away into the private VIP room by VIP4 and escapes with footage of the VIP's information of the games. In Season 1, Episode 8, the frontman finds out that Junho has escaped, now about 99% sure about his identity after finding his police ID with the overboard dead body. Junho had to take an oxygen tank to escape, but this would be his downfall. They had trackers on those tanks. He was traced to a smaller island, where he was then chased up to a cliff, then cornered by the frontman and a handful of guards. The frontman then tells him that he only has 1 bullet left in his gun, due to his calculations made with knowledge from his police days, and that he isn't scared of Junho. He then commits his final evil act on this list, shooting the frontman, his own brother. He then finds out that In-ho is the frontman, and then gets shot off of the cliff edge. Myung-gi, aka MG Coin or Player 333, is a character who has a couple of evil acts, but not enough to be seen as a fully evil character. The most obvious is the fork incident where he kills Thanos in the bathroom scene, Season 2 Episode 6 to Episode 7 crossover in self-defense. But it definitely will be mentioned later as it's still murder, despite the defensive element. Next up is his abandonment of Jun-hee. He left her, just waiting for her to have an abortion, and didn't know what happened to her, probably not caring at all. The last incidents are in his conversations with her across Season 2, where he continuously talks about money and crypto, seemingly not being bothered about her. The next is quite obvious, but not many will consider him as good. Cho Sang-woo. He certainly knew how to manipulate and how to cover his tracks of evil to stay in Gi-hun's good books for as long as possible. To start off, he deceived Gi-hun at the start of Dalgona in Season 1 Episode 3 by not telling him what the game is and letting him choose the obvious hardest shape, the umbrella. He shows here that he didn't care if Gi-hun lived or died, he just wanted to preserve himself. His next and biggest act of evil is in Marvel's Season 1 Episode 6, where he takes advantage of Ali's innocence and, I have to say it, ignorance of the rules to eliminate him. This pair also plays odds or evens, and like Il-nam and Gi-hun, the marbles are split 19-1, with the player who eventually loses having the advantage, in this case, Ali. Sang-woo starts desperately begging Ali to let him live, currently just to bluff so that he could think of a plan to survive. After about a minute, Sang-woo knows how to advance to the next game, which was Glass Bridge. He tells Ali that they can both get out of the game if they wait it out and play marbles against another team that didn't finish playing. Except, well, they can't. The rules clearly stated that if a pair could not finish playing, and the marbles were split by the end of the 30 minutes, resulting in elimination for both players. Ali falls for it, and Sang-woo tells him that he has to keep his marbles safe, so he gets Ali to hand them over so he can tie them up. At this point, Sang-woo replaces Ali's marbles with rocks so that he can have all 20 to go through to the next game, and Ali gets shot. Sang-woo ends up killing 2 more people before he kills himself. The first 2 of these 2 is the Glassmaker, Player 017 at the end of Glass Bridge, Season 1 Episode 7. He has just helped Sang-woo, Gi-hun, and Se-byuk reach the end of the game, but the frontman turns off the lights, which were what he was using to tell apart the tampered and regular glasses. He is indecisive, so Sang-woo takes matters into his own hands, pushing him forwards onto what was regular glass, eliminating Player 017. His final kill is one that we all know of, Se-byuk. The remaining glass platforms were blown up after Glass Bridge had ended, giving injuries to all 3 of the remaining players. But the boy's wounds were nowhere near as bad as Se-byuk's, a glass shard into the abdomen, pretty much guaranteeing her demise before the end of 6 games, but her decision to pull it out made it even worse. She must have been bleeding out during the meal for it to have been as bad as it was in the night. She was passing out as Gi-hun shouted for guards, like they would do anything about it, but still, at least he tried, and when they came, he saw them with a pink ribbon coffin. He turned to see Sang-woo, bloody knife in his hand, and Se-byuk bleeding out from the neck, just like Sang-woo would eventually be in the Squid Games. Captain Park also makes his way onto this list after his work as the mole in the plans of Gi-hun and Jun-ho to find the island. He led Jun-ho away from the island in his searches for 3 whole years, so that the games weren't infiltrated by him for a second time. He also contacts In-ho, telling him about Gi-hun's tracker, and he puts it in a fish tub, throwing the squad off. To add on to this man's evil acts, he's part of the organ harvesting scheme. His boat was the one being brought up by the guards in conversations at the table in Season 1, from Episodes 3 to 5. He transported the harvested organs to some form of the black market, either paying the guards for them so that he could eventually sell them, or taking them and sending the guards part of the money made from the black market sale. Next up, we have Ji-young, a character whose acts were overlooked by even me until researching for this video. We found out during her confessions to Se-byuk in Marbles, Season 1 Episode 6, that she joined the games after being released from prison and drowning in debt without a job or home. Why was she in prison, you ask? She murdered her own father. But it wasn't as bad as you may think. He had been abusing her and her mother, eventually killing her mom. She killed him as revenge, but you can't say that that isn't evil. It's like dismissing the recruiter killing his dad. Yeah, different circumstances, but at the end of the day, murder's still murder. We can also add Kang Se-byuk to this list. She's a good character in the end, turned rogue by Jang Duk-soo's work, a league of criminals in a sort of pyramid scheme in which they were intimidated into doing his dirty work for him. Whilst being forced to work for Duk-soo because of her nationality, which she's North Korean, and Duk-soo's power to have her killed if she leaves. She pickpockets Gi-hun after he won the horse racing bets for around 8 million won, making it so that he can't pay off a small portion of his debts to the loan sharks, although Se-byuk wouldn't know this, meaning he must sign the physical rights contract. This is ultimately what makes him join the games. We don't know what else she did, but where Duk-soo is involved, it can't be good. To top off this list is our main character, Sung Gi-hun. He's seen as a generally good guy, never killing, trying to save as many people as possible from the 2024 games, doing all that so he can stop the games, literally dedicating 2 years of his life to it. So how could he be evil? Well, to start off, he abandons his mother not just once, but twice, over the span of 2 days. First, he gambles away the money she gave him for his daughter's birthday, not only betraying her trust, but also his daughter's if she knew. He then leaves her for a full day just to join the Squid Games, only to come crawling back when he realizes what they're like. He then discovers that she's ill with diabetes, just to leave her again when she needed him to take care of her the most. It was the end of her life, which, yeah, Gi-hun would not have known, but when an already vulnerable person falls ill, most people's first instinct is to take care of them, staying by their side. But Gi-hun? Nope. He goes for the money, even when his mother told him that she would be fine without extra money. To add on to Gi-hun's family troubles, he was going to move to the US to be able to have partial custody of his daughter, Ga-young, but throws this idea away when he sees the recruiter playing Dakji with who could have been a player in the 34th Squid Games. He runs away from this flight, trying to catch the recruiter, but is